It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Business, featuring interviews with South Carolina business executives, community leaders, and government dignitaries. Let's Talk Business is a truly one-of-a-kind business-to-business talk show. And now, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. I am your host, Rick Jenkins, and welcome to the show. This is episode number 20. And regardless if you are joining us by watching our videos on our YouTube channel, or maybe you have downloaded our podcast on Google or Spotify or Apple, however you are doing so, I'm glad that you are here with us today. Last episode, episode 18, was the construction outlook for 2024, and I had a conversation with Eldon Goins. Eldon is with Carroll Daniel Construction, and we talked all things construction. And today, we are going to be having the residential real estate outlook. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do these back to back, and I said this in last week's episode, is that I feel that, real estate and construction are kind of harbingers of the way the economy is looking. I mean, economists are really always taking a look at housing starts and construction starts and these kind of things as one of those factors that lets them know that in the future what the economy may be doing, whether it's receding, contracting, or expanding, and that type of thing. So these kinds of things are really important, I think. And here to have the conversation with me today is Dave Crigler. Dave is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Joyner REALTORS. Dave, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Rick. That's a mouthful, wasn't it?
It was a mouthful, man. You have one of those titles that I almost have to look down and get it out. EVP and COO. How long have you been with the company?
I've been with the company since 1986.
Okay.
Moved here with my wife, who was CDAN's oldest child, and started selling in 86. And started in sales, and then Dan would move you around wherever he needed you.
That's right.
So
he moved you and he moved you.
He did.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you started with CDAN because I wanted to talk about him for just a sec. I mean, most everyone that's going to be watching this video knows who CDAN Joyner was. CDAN, of course, and I think CDAN passed what's it been now? A decade, 12 years, something like that. He's been gone a while, but what a personality CDAN Joyner was. A great businessman, a great community leader, well known in the industry. He started, of course, CDAN Joyner Realtors in what was 1964? 64. Yep, that's it, 1964. And then you're going to fast forward a few decades, and you all merged in with Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices. Tell me how that relationship works.
Yeah, and we were Prudential CDAN Joyner for 25 years or so, and Prudential wanted out, and they had sold it to a Canadian firm, Brookfield. And we were like, what is this going to be like? And HomeServices of America, which is Buffett's real estate brokerage arm, stepped in, and really for the first time ever, he allowed the Berkshire Hathaway name to be used in a consumer-facing way. And so we were pretty excited about that, as you can imagine. And so we decided to adopt early. We could have stayed as Prudential CDAN Joyner, which was our identity for all those years. But we decided we wanted a fresh change. I mean, CDAN had just passed away. Danny and I had taken over. We had been heavily involved before then anyway, but at that point, it was Danny and myself, and we thought, let's just go ahead and make this change. And so we pushed for that change. It's been a great relationship. As I say, they had owned HomeServices of America. They were getting into the franchise business, so they've been in the real estate business. They were very knowledgeable, and they were just in the beginning phases of building out a franchise model. Mm-hmm. So we got in on the ground floor, if you will.
Right. Now, you mentioned Danny, and everybody knows this, but just to be clear, Danny Joyner is now the CEO of the company, CDAN's son, and he took over about a decade ago, right about the same time the Berkshire deal was happening, as I recall. Okay, and now we fast forward, and you guys are the largest real estate company in the upstate. In the upstate, right? A little more than 400 associates last I checked.
Yep, we've pushed it up to around 450.
450.
Now, give or take a few.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so we got all of that out of the way, and now let's talk business.
Okay.
So if I were to guess, I would say that 2023 was not a very good year for residential real estate. Am I right or wrong?
It's been an up and down crazy year. I'll tell you,
right?
Coming out of those unicorn years is what we call them during the pandemic, when nobody really saw that coming. For example, first quarter of this year, if you looked at it year over year, it was pretty rough.
Right.
Because first quarter of 22 was still rolling. And 22 rolled for maybe half a year, and then it started to fall out a little bit. And so it's been hard to do year over year comparisons for the last couple of years. They've just been so unique. So yeah, it was not a good first quarter, but we've been building on it since then, and we've been able to attract some new talent to our company that actually brought in some new construction business, brought some builders with them. And that's something that we wanted to focus on to get into that new construction. I'm glad you brought that up from your previous show, because that's going to be, some of the inventory relief here in the next short period of time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the information that I have seen recently shows that Q4 is actually looking pretty good in comparison to year over year. And of course, from Q3 to Q4, things are looking pretty good. And we're going to get into all that detail here as we go on. But right now, 2024 is promising, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, all indications. And we listened to and talked to a couple of people. Lars Yoon, who's the chief economist with the National Association of Realtors, is expecting, about a 13.5% increase in home sales next year, rates to drop a little bit. We also consult with T360, which is Stefan Swampole. He's a leading, analytics and consulting group, leading real estate analytics and consulting group. And so we've got them coming in to look at, which we do on occasion, look at everything we're doing and ask us some tough questions so we can evaluate and move forward.
Some of the data that we're going to be talking about today was provided by GGAR, the Greater Greenville Association of Realtors, and the last info that we have was looking at the end of October. And so we're filming this here in the beginning of December, and we don't yet have the November numbers. And so as we talk about things, for now, it's looking at the end of October. And what that is, it's a rolling 12-month comparison, correct?
Well, it's a month over month. It'll be October versus October of 22, I believe.
Right. But in the report I saw, I think it also had 12-month numbers, and I'm assuming that was from October of 22 through October of 23. Yeah. Regardless, the data ends in October of 23, a couple months ago. So as I'm looking at the GGAR data, it is showing national sales are up about 12% from the prior month, and they're over the prior year as well. However, I realize that we're not performing quite as well here in the upstate, and the numbers that I'm looking at here show us down about 10% to the prior year. Is that the case?
That's the case. That's what we've seen, and it's actually improved a little bit as the year's gone on, going back to the year-over-year stuff. Early in the year, over 22, it was even more than that.
Yeah, exactly. And do you think, when is it that you think that we might reach to the prior year's numbers? Are we going to be able to get back to there in Q1? Because that trend line is doing this.
Yeah, I don't know if Q1's going to do it. I don't know if we'll see that, because all indications from people we've talked to and what our experience is, we're back in a normal market. We're back in like a 2018, 2019 market pre-pandemic.
Right.
And so I think we'll be looking at typical cycles. So I'm not expecting first quarter to be that great. It'll be solid, but then I think you'll see it, start to not take off, start to pick up a good bit.
And I would assume, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but I would assume it's probably going to coincide to some degree with the decrease in mortgage rates, interest rates that are going to be occurring slowly over the next year.
That's going to drive a lot of it. And there's a couple things that the economists are looking at, and it's the interest rate getting back down.
Right.
People realizing they're not likely to see 3 again anytime soon.
That's that unicorn you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. So they're going to have to go, okay, this is good.
That's right.
This is good. And hopefully it'll also directly impact some inventory issues with some folks who have had, I don't want to say golden handcuffs, but just didn't want to let go of that 3% and didn't want to leave their home and then move out into a 7, 8, 9, whatever interest rate. So hopefully, life still goes on and people need to sell and move on. They're going to retire other places. So hopefully that'll help the inventory a little bit too.
The interest rates now are what, 7.4, 7.5 in that ballpark. Now, when I was a younger man, I would have been perfectly happy with 7.4, 7.5, right? It would have been a great deal. It's only not a good deal because of those unicorn years you were talking about.
Yeah.
Let's talk about inventory. Nationally, I have seen statistics that show that we have historically low inventory. How does that look in the greater Greenville area?
It's up slightly year over year, but it's still a challenge with the number of people that are choosing to live in Greenville and in the upstate. It started a while back, but it's been amazing the number of folks who choose to live here that could live, work anywhere.
Yeah.
It used to be Asheville, Charlotte, Charleston, Atlanta, and now Greenville is, you've seen all the top 10 reports.
That's right. We are no longer a hidden gem.
We are not. We are not. And so, the demand is still so great. One, home pricing hasn't gone down, and I don't see it going down, and economists don't see
not in
it
Greenville.
Going down, not around here. There's still a lot of pressure on that. So inventory is going to stay tight. Yeah. I mean, it's just going to.
So it's going to remain a seller's market.
Rick, it's a strange seller's market when you say. I mean, to me, because, well, one, it's not going to be where they've got 10 or 15 offers coming in, or 5 offers coming in. I don't see that. The challenge for some sellers, especially in the lower price points, if you want to get some of these first-time home buyers, moving towards home ownership,
right?
Their discretionary dollars that they have to spend to start there. So you may have to actually offer some incentives in some situations, not everywhere. There's still some high demand areas that are going to get multiple offers, but some sellers may need to offer some down payment assistance to get some of these folks in a property. That sounds funny.
I got to be honest, Dave, I've never heard of that before, a seller offering that, or I suppose.
Well, not in this market.
But that sounds
unusual.
unusual.
But there's just going to be some price points in the market where some of these people are going to need some help. It depends on how quickly, what the motivation is of the seller.
I understand.
If they have to move quickly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I'd like to know what is selling and what is not selling right now. I mean, we can look at it from a few different vantage points. I mean, one, we can just talk about price, or we can talk about, square footage or bedroom count or whatever. But let's just look at it from a price perspective. If I'm looking at out there, what is, I would assume 150,000 and less is selling like hotcakes. Quick.
If they still sell well,
Yeah.
It's way down.
Right.
That price point took the biggest hit just because first-time home buyer doesn't have the money to get in, and the interest rates knocked them out. But they still sell well. I mean,
right.
Year to date, we still have a lot of units sold. But it's not what it was the last 2 years with the low rates.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but if I'm looking at days on market, right, what price range is the one that's going quickest?
I really couldn't tell you that, because to me, it's all so low. The sweet spot, I would say, is 350 to 500.
Yeah.
I would say that's where you get the most attention. So I haven't looked at that particular price point, days on market, but that's where we would normally see a lot of people lined up to go in and look at it, multiple offers coming in first day. I mean, gone in just a couple of days.
Yeah. I would assume that we have more $1 million homes in Greenville than we've ever had before. It seems like we have.
Yeah.
When I drive around and look longingly at subdivisions, what does that look like?
Believe it or not, it's strong.
Yeah.
And they're cash buyers.
Right.
At least 30% of our total business is cash buyers. And at one point it was as high as 40%. We've got a lot of downtown luxury condos we've sold, and almost all those are cash. The single-family homes, depending on where they are, go pretty quickly. There's not a large pool of buyers. There's not a large pool of homes, but it's more than we've ever had, for sure.
Well, let's stick with condos for a second. Mm-hmm. I moved to South Carolina about 20 years ago, and when I moved into town, there were only a couple of condo groupings in downtown Greenville, right? And I can't even remember their names now, but there was one over the Wells Fargo Bank, then there was one that, well, anyway, there was only a couple, two or three, and now, of course, there's 20 times that. Yeah. And it seems like, just like hotels, I always am astounded, excuse the tangent, folks, but I'm always astounded that more and more hotels go up, and the room rates still remain in the 70 to 75% range. And so there's demand there. And so now back to condos. The more they build, the more they get bought, and people are coming in and they're just snatching them up, and
there's a couple of different buyers. There's the folks who want to downsize.
Yeah.
They still want a decent size. They really just want to get rid of their yard. But
they don't want to do it.
They still want some square footage. They want to bring their valuables with them. And so we've been fortunate to represent 4 or 5 downtown condo projects, and they all sold out right about the time of construction completion, which is great. Alta Vista Place down near Serene, and maybe all but one were from within 2 miles. Same with Broadview, that'll close out in probably the second quarter of 2024, 38 units, and a majority of those are locals, if you will. And then a couple of other projects, Markley Place, was a higher percentage of folks moving in from out of town. But they come in with cash, and
right.
And to be quite honest, there's some of them these are second homes.
Right.
They have a place up at Kiwi. They want to come into town.
Do you have any idea how many units we're talking, condo units in the downtown Greenville area?
I don't know, because I'm not sure about the hidden inventory. There's still a good number. There's a lot of non-MLS listings out there.
Right.
So I wouldn't have an accurate number. The ones you see, there's a couple more projects coming on that you'll see come on in the next year. But at any one point in time, these projects we represent, Terry Birch and Greg Side are the developers, and they come on with 38 units at a time, and it takes about 2 years, to get them sold.
So there is more coming.
There's more coming.
Right.
There's more coming.
I guess it's just not going to end.
It's
well, that's all right. That's okay.
For those of us who have been around for a while, it's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fun.
It is. Let's stick with mortgage rates for a second. Mm-hmm. And so, as I said a minute ago, they're in the 7.5 range, and next year, everything that I look at shows that it's going to come down until maybe the high 6s at some point next year. Now, the difference in a 6.7 and a 7.5, and I should have figured this out on a mortgage calculator before I came in here, but it is substantial on a 30-year fix.
Yeah.
If you're going from I'm just making up 7.5 to a 6.7, there's a big difference in that. What is going to happen at that point when those numbers start to come down? What do you think that the industry is going to look like?
Well, I'm hoping that it brings more, that it does two things. That it brings more of the entry-level folks, first-time home buyers, maybe the second home for some people where they've started a family and need to kind of find more space, that they go ahead and make a move. And also to the sellers who have these golden handcuffs, if you will, of the 3% interest rate, that, whatever life events going on, retirement, whatever, move to be near grandchildren, that they'll put those houses on the market. So it'll certainly stimulate things. And Lars Huhn, who's the chief economist for National Association of Realtors, is actually forecasting that they may settle in a little bit later next year in the low to mid sixes, which would be great. If we can get anywhere there, we won't even talk about fives. But if we can get it to 6.2, I think that brings, as you mentioned, it's such a difference that brings so many people back into the market.
I pulled up a mortgage calculator here just for the fun of it, and the difference in a 7.5% 30-year fixed and a 6.5% on a $350,000 home, I just picked what I think about the average price is about $400 a month. And so you're looking at $5,000 a year, and you can do your own math over the course of 30 years. It's a humongous difference.
It's a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
But do you feel pretty comfortable that we will be looking at 6 3/4 at some point next year?
Well, I sure hope so.
I'm asking on behalf of my daughter, who's waiting to buy a home at the right time.
Well, you should help her do that.
Well, I will, but I want to wait.
I don't see why not. In all indications, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what this election year is going to do to things. I mean, that's
uncharted waters.
That's a wild card on this matter. But let's just forget about that for now. And I do see them getting down into at least the mid to upper sixes. Whether they get as low as what Dr. Yoon says, we'll see.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear you say that. What is the average price of a home sold in the Greenville area right now?
It's I think it's in the 370 to 380 range.
Right. How does that compare? Do you have any sense of
historically? That's historically, you're talking about somebody that's been around for a while. That's way up.
Right.
That's way up when the median price is obviously much lower than that. It's down in the lower threes. Yeah. But that's a significant average sales price.
Right. And just to be clear, the median price that you're talking about, that's that number where half are above and half are below.
Yeah.
And so it's in the low 300s. The average price is higher than that.
And right now, the upper end is salary.
Yeah.
Because they're bringing cash to the table, and the lower end the entry end is taking a hit.
Right. Well, I want to end the show by having a conversation about a landmark antitrust lawsuit that, of course, you and everyone in your industry is all too familiar with and are probably a little nervous about, that was settled several weeks ago, I think toward the end of October. And let me just give you a little bit of background on it to our viewers, and then I'll let you comment. I believe, and if you read through this, folks, if you just Google Sitzer Burnett, there is plenty of stuff to read about, but it appears that this will be a significant challenge to traditional real estate commission structures, potentially. There are far-reaching implications, I think, also for buyers and sellers, and we'll get into that too. But here's the bottom line. The case alleged that the National Association of Realtors and some of the largest national real estate franchisors conspired to inflate real estate commissions over a period of time. A jury found in favor of the plaintiffs and awarded them $1.8 billion. Now, I don't quite understand this, but because of antitrust laws, that $1.8 billion will probably go in the neighborhood of $5 billion when all is said and done. Now, it's going to be appealed, and it's going to be appealed again, and it's going to be appealed again. Yeah. However, as of today, this is quite concerning, yes?
Well, it is, because it causes a lot of confusion in what we're trying. That now there's been copycat lawsuits. I mean, they're coming because look at the money involved, right? And so what we're trying to do is it's just kind of cut out some of the noise and some of the things that we have no control over. The appeal process, the whole thing, all those arguments, and let's just get our agents focused on what we do and what we do well and how they can articulate their value to both a seller and a buyer. And it's going to require them to understand fully what their value is and having those conversations with buyers and sellers. Now, we still believe for a seller that a cooperative compensation arrangement, whatever that looks like moving forward, will be the best way for them to bring in more qualified purchasers. And we've already seen some of it in action out there where you have some sellers that have said, I don't want to pay, a buyer agent. And, then there are buyers who have signed South Carolina is a buyer representation state, one of 19. We've had this in place for years.
Define that for me.
Where you create an agency relationship, you can either do transaction brokerage, customer service, or you can get full agency fiduciary relationship with your agent, and that involves a lot of duties and responsibilities. And a lot of them want that representation because, for so long, we really earned our money contract to close, negotiation to close. But with the market that we've been talking about, to get a highly skilled buyer agent who knows where to look for the homes that aren't on the market is pretty valuable if you want to get in and to help you get into those properties. So that's a little bit of a change, but these buyer agency agreements that set up this relationship, there have been recently, and I've been talking to folks around the industry too that are just sharing stories that have buyers who say, I only want you to show me properties where they're going to pay. Or they're going to want to write it into the offer so they can at least finance it,
right?
As long as it appraises. So some of that's been going on anyway because, you could put zero down. People have had choices for years. And even in the Greenville MLS, you could have put a seller for years could have said, I don't want to pay a buyer representative. You can put zero in down for that cooperation. That's been voluntary for a while. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, everybody's had options. Everything's negotiable. And I think if you probably went out there and if they dissected brokerages, I don't know what they did in the day-to-day and what they presented in this trial, but if you went out there and looked, you probably wouldn't see very many 3% on this side and 3% on that side. And there's been commission pressure since these other models have come along in the last decade or so. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out and how these appeals go. Yeah. But what we want to do is coach and train our associates to go out and share with their prospective clients what their value is.
Some of what I've read has said that it won't stand on appeal, and then I have seen other things that says it might have a pretty good chance. And so there's people on both sides here. One last thing, and we'll get you out of here on this. How will this potentially impact the home buyers themselves?
Well, I think some of them are going to struggle without some professional help. I do. There's a lot of hurdles to go through. Like I mentioned, we typically earn our money from negotiation, from contract to close. In the initial negotiation of price and some of the initial terms isn't even the toughest one. Sometimes it's the repair request. Sometimes it's the other things that you got to keep up with to get across the finish line. And I got to believe that if some people try to go it alone, and we've had folks come up to us and say, hey, I tried to sell my house, or I tried to buy my house by myself, and I'll never do that again. I want help. Right. And so I think there's some people out there that are still going to want and need that support.
Good stuff, Dave. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Folks, that is Dave Crigler. He is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Sedan Joyner Realtors. And we were sitting here talking about the residential real estate outlook for next year, and it looks like things are getting better, folks. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Let's Talk Business. We'll see you next time.